in studio with us, former state president Nelson Mandela, Madiba. Do we call you Mr. President or can we call you Madiba?
Well, Madiba is better.
Madiba, okay. Madiba, lovely to have you here in the studio. We've been looking forward to it well, John has been promising us for about 2 years now, but when he told us a couple of weeks ago, and we got the letter, we were over the moon that you're coming in. So lovely to have you here with us. Did you follow a lot of the cricket in Australia, if not all of it?
No, I did when I had the moment to do so. And I always I phone our sports people, whether they win or lose. And of course, I'm no longer president. Now I have to be very careful because the president of the country is the person who should do that. But informally and quietly, I still do phone them and rejoice with them when they have won and commiserate with them when they have lost.
So they got, 2 phone calls, one after the Test series and then one joyous phone call after the World Series, which they won.
Yes.
How did you feel after the Test series, and then what were your feelings when they, first of all, knocked Australia out of the World Series and they went on to win the trophy for the first time?
Yes, quite. I was very happy indeed. Very delighted because, as we have said on countless occasions before, sports is one of the most important agency for unity in this country. And that we have done that very well. Even before the first democratic election in 1994, we used sport to mobilize the South African community for transformation. And the first outstanding evidence of that transformation was when our team, Olympic team, went to Barcelona in 1992. I was there, and knowing that they had been boycotted for a long time, I was satisfied with their performance.
Just going back, I mean, it's more than 10 years now since we've been back in international sport. From a sporting point of view, do you think there has been progress across the board as far as sport goes?
Well, firstly, we won the World Rugby Contest in 1995. We also won the Africa, the Soccer Cup of Nations in 1996. That was an outstanding victory when you take the background of countries that have been boycotted for so many years. And our young people did very well. They made us feel proud.
And from 1996 to now, do you feel there is still ongoing progress, even though
there's no doubt? If you look at the history of every country, there are times when teams win and bring pride to the nation. There are times when they lose. What I condemn in the strongest terms is that when our teams lose, then the media condemns them mercilessly without even putting alternatives. When you support people, you inspire them. They can do better than their best. But when you condemn them when they lose, then you destroy them completely. Many young people have been destroyed by this insensitive and callous comment. I really resent it in the strongest terms. We should be constructive, we should be positive, and the idea must be to inspire our young people,
right,
both in soccer, rugby, cricket, and basketball and so on.
All right, just before John comes in there, just linking on to that question, a lot of the media also carry stories about selection debacles, selection controversies, selection opinions on one side or the other. Do you see all of these, and what are your opinions about what you have seen and read?
Firstly, the controlling bodies must be fully representative of the people of the country. Just as happened in 1992, because the first team, if you remember, was dominated by whites. And our South African Sports Council, Semres, Ronson and others, sent me to Switzerland to go and persuade the Olympic team to double that number. We succeeded. And that was a good start. Irrespective of the performance of the actual contestants, it was a good performance. That should happen in all sports, but the controlling bodies must be fully representative, because we have not yet reached that yet. And as long as that is the position, without any malice on the part of the controlling body, composed of people of a different background altogether, a great deal of injustice will be done. And that is why, therefore, it is absolutely necessary but the various population groups, they should be fully represented.
Madiba, could you share with us the Rugby World Cup 95 experience when you donned the number 6 jersey?
Well, that was very important indeed, because as you know, rugby has always been the religion, especially of the Afrikaner community. And of course, the Afrikaners are very important, although all groups are important. The white group in this country, which has had many advantages, amongst them, the Afrikaners occupy a special position because they have fought British imperialism. Madiba, 1886, and the Anglo-Boer War are real landmarks. Whatever you call them, you may call them the Eerste Vryheidsoorlog or the Tweede Vryheidsoorlog. It is a landmark in our country. They are a group that understands our aspirations because they themselves have fought for liberation, even though that liberation was for themselves, was not inclusive of other groups. But nevertheless, they have that distinction. And that is why when we mobilize all whites, as we do without distinction, we should pay particular attention to the Afrikaners.
We have British colonialism once again in rugby because they're now just gone to world number 1. How do we mobilize again to get them out?
And now, what we do is not to use the big stick, but to confront our people with a reasonable argument. And we have a lot of ammunition to make people to change from their attitude. We have demonstrated this politically because instead of using violence, in which case the apartheid regime would have been on top, we went to them and said, let's sit down and talk. And once that happened, our ammunition was overwhelming. They could never admit it. That is what we should do, generally speaking, in all cases.
Where is the Francois Pienaar number 6 jersey that you wore? Do you know?
Well, I had kept it, but I know that it had been
auctioned.
Yeah.
I think it's gone around the country. It might even be overseas at the moment. I don't know. We don't even know.
Yes.
96, the next big moment. And I mean, all the players, you're almost part of the 95 Rugby World Cup team. They say they could not have done it without you and your presence there. A lot of people talk about the final, but I was at the first game in Cape Town.
Yeah.
And that moment beforehand was absolutely unbelievable when you walked out and 45,000 people went absolutely crazy.
Yes, quite.
96, same story.
That's right. In that team rugby tournament, I went to Silver Mines, where our boys were playing the Australians. And I spoke to Francois and his team. And I said that the team that wins this much will go right through to the end. because South Africans were fighting the champions at the time. And I had confidence in our boys that they trained for that contest. And I was happy when my predictions were fulfilled.
You're not a betting man.
I know. No. But of course, I was very tense at the final game because I have never seen a rugby game where there was no try, where it was all penalties, and I have never seen that.
96? The same thing?
1996, yes. I was also very happy precisely because we had been boycotted for such a long time. And we had racial sport in rugby, in soccer, cricket, and so on. And now we had the opportunity of playing on the basis of merit, not on the basis of color. And I liked very much the people who controlled soccer, although I felt uneasy when the controlling body was dominated by whites. But they played very well and won. And that was a great moment in our history.
Moving away from soccer and rugby and looking at yourself, Madiba, could you share with us some of those memories of your amateur boxing days?
Well, there is nothing spectacular, I can say, because I was an amateur boxer at school and outside. I enjoyed that for my own well-being, but there was never anything spectacular in my boxing, so we better shun it.
Tennis?
Weren't you undefeated?
Well, I mean, in sport, you win, and times you lose. That is the nature of sport. We must prepare young people that you are going to a game, to a kind of sport where you must expect to win and to lose. When you lose, you must not be demoralized. You must know that is the nature of sport. If it is boxing, you say one of the greatest heavyweights were produced in the world was Joe Louis. You know what happened when he met the German champion, and he had a weakness. When he delivered his right, he dropped his guard, and this German champion noticed that, and every time he threw that right, he himself in turn threw that right to his jaw and knocked him out.
Game over.
But in the return fight, he knocked Schmeling in the first round. He gave him a hard right to the pit of the stomach. And Schmeling cried. And Louis said, "How is that?"
Did you notice that while Madiba, for the folks who are listening, can't see, while Madiba was describing all that, he still got all the boxing moves. He's throwing the lefts, throwing the rights. Is your favorite sport boxing?
Well, as a youngster, it was. But of course, I've admired our own boxers, like Harry Coetzee, Pierre Coetzee, and Khalid Notze, and of course, people like Baby Jake McClellan, Philip No, Hawk Makapula, people like Fana, and Sebastian Rothman, the light heavyweight boxing champion in South Africa. I admire all of them, and because they have been good in boxing. And our present boxers have brought a lot of world titles, and that's something for which we're proud.
Not only were you a good boxer, but also an expert in chess. Take us back to Robben Island.
Hold on a second, because there's a bit of inside information here, and this goes back to what you were telling us a little earlier on about how you must be prepared as a youngster when you go into any sporting event in boxing. I had the good fortune and the honour of going to Robben Island 4 times. We we're doing a documentary which still isn't finished on sport on Robben Island during the days and years that you were there.
Yes.
And I had the good fortune of going with one Terra Lakota.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And he was taking me through the various things of the soccer and the rugby and the various sport, the tennis.
Yes.
And then he took me to some cells that were there. And he said, this is where they play chess. And he got a frown in his face and he said, Madiba was always the champion. He used to frustrate us like anything playing chess. And he said, you never won a checkmate. You just used to frustrate people and outwit them. Tell us how you won it. Tell us how you play chess.
Well, I was playing with experts, and I was not one. But I knew that I exploited the weaknesses of experts who wanted to finish the game as quickly as possible. And my own tactic was to delay it as long as possible. And one of my colleagues playing chess in a tournament, because of the way I frustrated him by taking a time before I move a piece, he suddenly caught up and picked up the chessboard and threw it away and walked away.
You used to walk out of the cell and go for a stroll in the courtyard while it was your move.
No, I didn't go that far.
Ah, okay, that's what he said.
No, I didn't go that far. But I did something similar to that, because if I had gone out to walk out, I would come back. The length of time I spoke would allow me to go out and take a walk outside and come back.
Now, is it true that you played in 3 cells? One player in the one cell, one in the other, and one in the middle. Just tell us how you played and also what you didn't have chessboards.
No. We were allowed eventually to buy proper chessboards, and we were allowed to go out into the courtyard and to play there because many people were interested. The chap who was actually the champion was Andrew Mlangeni, who is now in Parliament. He's one of the veterans. But of course, a couple of times I beat him and I became the champion because I frustrated him.
And that's how Madiba won. Tell us about the role that sport played on Robben Island. It's a fascinating story because not only from a point of view of recreation, but also what the purpose was that you guys were trying to do there on the island and stay in contact with each other. It played a massive role.
Yes. Well, the other sport that I played was tennis. But the man who repeatedly became a champion was Frank Anthony from the Western Cape. And I'm sorry that he passed away because he was a young man in his late 20s. He was very good. He could tell beautiful stories. And one of the stories that I enjoyed very much was one by a school teacher, a principal, who said to him, Gister Ont, de gees het my baie gepla. Dit het my hier gesit en daar gesit, so waar. I mean, when Frank Anthony would tell you the stories, you would laugh all the time. Yeah. He was very good, but he was the best tennis player. And then the other chap was our colleague from Pietermaritzburg, and I forget his name now, man. I forgot a friend of ours. He was very good, but he didn't have the stamina and the self-confidence which Frank Anthony had. And but I enjoyed tennis.
Madiba, you made a comment last week about the South African public criticizing our national sports teams too easily. What were your comments on this?
No. What I was saying is something that had happened. Look at how they criticize Shaun Pollock and his team. How they criticize, for example, Bafana when they lost in Mali, and how they criticize rugby, Filion. You know, I had to phone them. Filion was in America when we phoned him, because I realized how miserable the youngster must have been. And I phoned him to inspire him. And I don't like people who are negative. Some of the people who are very heavy in their condemnation of our teams are those who themselves failed and would take their frustration on our youngsters instead of saying, it's regrettable that you've lost. This happened in all countries. It's not anything unique. But brush up. I have noticed this weakness in the way in which you play, in the way in which you were trained before the match. And this is my suggestion for you to win. Now, if somebody says that, the boys become proud, their sense of patriotism is aroused, and they demonstrate that in the field. This is what I was emphasizing, that the media and certain individuals are very negative in their comments.
What would you like to see in the next few years as far as sport goes in South Africa? What do you think is the one thing that is paramount that we need to do in this country as a public, as administrators, as sportsmen and women, as a whole, a sporting community in this country? What's the one thing you'd like to see?
You say we have moved away from teams that are selected on the basis of race. We're moving away from it and emphasizing selection on the basis of merit. But we have not yet fully implemented the merit criteria because the controlling bodies are not properly representative of the population groups. And as long as that is the position, there will be a great deal of dissatisfaction. The controlling bodies must be fully represented, and people who think in terms of past times must be eliminated, must be moved away, and to get people black and white. And as I say, when I use the term black, I mean Africans, coloreds, and Indians. Black and white, Africans and English speaking. We must concentrate on merit, and that is all.
It's 2 minutes away from 7. In studio with us, former state president Nelson Mandela, Madiba. We've spoken to you about sport tonight, but there is one thing we do need to ask. I don't know if it was one of the things we said we would, but what kind of music do you like?
Well, I am I'm a veteran. I like classic. I like jazz. But there is a lot of music now which concentrate on activity, jumping around. Now, I'm not in a position to comment because the age gap is very wide. And but the young people seem to like it, seem to enjoy it, and I'm satisfied with that. But I like classical music. I like choral music. I like jazz very much.
And you hear the music that your grandchildren listen to sometimes, but that's...
I know.
He says frowning.
You see, normally they have got their own section because they don't want to be listening to the things I'm interested in. And they have got their own section. At home here, the children have got their own wing. And in Cape Town, again, I've got the living room upstairs. But downstairs, the young people want to be there. So as to be free to do what they like.
And it's probably soundproofed as well.
That's right.
Thank you very much for joining us in studio tonight. And all the best.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.
It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Madiba.